Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're going to be checking out the QNAP TR-004 DAS, and we're going to be seeing what it is, how it is to use, and if I think you should pick one up. All that soon to come, and if you guys could please hit those like and subscribe buttons, it really does help me out as a small creator. And with all that out of the way, let's get into this. So let's get into what even is this thing. So basically what it is it is an external hard drive enclosure that supports RAID. So it lets you use RAIDs 1, 5, 10, and 0. And it lets you basically connect all the 4 hard drives to your computer under one of those RAID things or as a JBOD. So that's what it is, but now let's get into more of like how do you actually use it and what do you use it for. So there's 4 disk sleds at the front, as you can see, and each one of those you can put either a 2.5 or 3.5 inch hard drive in. They're super easy to install, and if you're using 3.5 inch ones, you don't even have to actually use any of the screws, but they do come provided and you can use them if you want. After you install the hard drives, the next step is to set up your RAID mode. So you can either do that on the back or within the software. And once you've done that, you then click the set button and it'll beep. Okay, so now assuming you followed those steps, the thing is pretty much entirely set up, which is crazy that it's that easier to do. That is one of the big benefits, I think, of this over a NAS, is you don't have to set up any of the network stuff. You don't have to do any of that. It's not a whole computer. It basically is just a giant file system storage device. And I personally, at least for my use case, that was way more helpful because I was looking at NASs before this, and that was a whole ordeal, especially if you wanted to do it direct attach. You had to get a crossover cable or you had to have a switch or something of that nature. This is a way easier solution, in my opinion, but we'll get a lot more into that later. Okay, going over a few more of the physical features. So it does have some physical security. You can lock all of the drives into the NAS enclosure, and it has a Kensington lock on the back so you can actually lock the enclosure itself to a location. I will say the locks on the front at least are plastic ones, so they're probably not super secure, but it's definitely better than nothing. So now that we have it set up and you've seen the process, let's go over to the actual software and the usability of it. So I'm going to throw some clips up here of using it, but basically it's super easy to set up. If you set it to software setup, you basically can pick that in the menu, and then you can check the health of your drives, and that's pretty much it. This utility is actually pretty awesome. It's super lightweight, it's super fast, and I had a great time using it. I don't know, I feel like every other software I use that comes from like not small, but like individual like component manufacturer, like ASUS's Armory or Corsair's like RGB setup thing, just feels bulky and takes forever to use, and it's super weird and complicated. And this thing has like maybe let's say a couple options, and they're the base ones you need, and it's super easy to use. So I can't say enough good things about the software. Whoever made that definitely did exactly what they should have, and I love it so much. So now we're going to put a speed test up here too. I will say this really is impacted by which drives you pick and then the orientation and RAID configuration you set up as well. So be sure to take this with a grain of salt unless you're taking my exact setup. But I think it's definitely usable, at least for what I want to do with it. And I can even edit 4K video off of the thing, and it works perfectly fine. And to be fair, that's exactly what I want to do with it, so I can't hate on it at all. I will say that it could become bottlenecked if you start putting a ton of high-performance SSDs in there, but that's not what this is for, and if you're looking for something like that, then you probably should be looking elsewhere. So I do want to throw some other things out there. You can actually, so I only have 3 drives in mind right now, but you can add a 4th one while keeping the 3 drives in there, and the array will expand. So that is a nice feature, especially if you don't need the space now, but you think you might need it later. It's really nice to have that ability to upgrade. As well, this does actually come in a 2-drive configuration, but I really wouldn't recommend that because I think it's $160 instead of $220. And it basically also limits you to only RAID 1 and 0 or JBOD. And I don't think that price savings is worth the space. If you know that's all you're ever going to need, I mean, maybe go for it. But I think that the expandability that this offers is way worth that premium. Yeah, that's pretty much the usability of it. I will say, especially I talked about it earlier, in comparison to a NAS, you can basically just plug this directly into whichever computer you want. Even the file system supports both Mac OS and Windows, and I'm sure Linux too. So that works. It basically is just a large flash drive, and that's all I really wanted. I guess getting into some of the comparable options in the space now, you can have individual hard drives, but then they won't have redundancy. And you technically, I'm sure for cheaper, you could get a workable solution of getting some old Dell Optiplex and then filling that with hard drives. But that's going to be a massive computer. It's probably going to take up way more power, and it's going to be louder. And It's not, it is a workable solution. And if you're on a budget, I think that that could be a really great solution. But if you just want a system that works and it's like a pre-contained product, I think that this thing does a great job. I will say that it is designed to be used with QNAP's other network attached storage devices, and it has like an auto copy button on the front of it. I don't have a QNAP NAS to mess with, so I can't say for that part. And we can also compare this to an actual NAS. So if you're trying to have like multiple people access files at once or have it be on the network, so basically you can access it from other locations, that is probably a much better solution for what you're looking for. But I mean, I only really edit videos on my desktop at home, so I don't really need that. So, and this is way cheaper than that because that becomes like basically it has a real processor in it, and then it's got its own networking, and you have to have like all sorts of other file system, and it becomes a much bigger ordeal. And this thing you just plug in and set up in like 10 seconds and press go. I will say one weird thing, the instructions, the way it describes the switch layout is inverted from how I thought. So be sure to pay attention to that because I had it set up backwards at first and that's why it wasn't working. But that's probably just me not paying attention more than the actual fault of the instructions. In conclusion, it really just does what it says it does. There's not a whole lot of bloat to it. You press go and it works. And I love tools like that because that's what it really is it's a tool and it's designed to do a job and it does do a job. And it does it well. I will say I haven't ever needed after-purchase support from QNAP, so I don't know how supportive they are on that front, but they seem to be a fairly reputable company, and my dad's bought some stuff from them in the past, and he's had no issues. Thank you guys so much for checking this out. It's a pretty basic review here, but the tool, I think it's a great tool, and it does a great job. So thank you so much for watching, and if you guys could hit those like and subscribe buttons, that would really help me out as a small channel. And thanks so much. See you next time.